Hey everyone, I'm Casey Hollins and you're watching the Sportsnet digital panel. Today the panel can only be called the Badass Edition, which I just love. And we've got in studio today a bunch of writers from Sportsnet Magazine. We've got Jordan, Dave, and Brett. Thanks for coming in, guys.
No problem.
The Badass issue of Sportsnet just hit the newsstands today. So I want to ask you guys, who you picked as your badass to write about and why?
I went with Ndamukong Suh from the Lions, just because he's the kind of player that, while it might not show up on the statistics sheet, he intimidates the opposing team. He's been called the dirtiest player in football. He's been called the most overrated player in football. He's been called a whole lot of unprintable names as well. But he goes out there and he said he has no intention of hurting anyone, but he absolutely wants them to remember him. He's the guy that stomped on the head of a Green Bay Packer last year. He took down Jay Cutler a couple of weeks ago with a slew foot and then crushed him into the turf. And it was bad enough that Cutler admitted that it really hurt, but even he knew that it was just part of the game. So I don't think it could be anybody else in the NFL but Suh.
Yeah, I mean, I went with Dwayne Wade, and we had two NBA players in it, and the obvious choice is Kobe Bryant for a number of reasons. In my opinion, the biggest of which is the goatee he grew during the Olympics. But anyways, that was written by Evan Rosser, another one of our editors and writers. So I went with Dwayne Wade as the second NBA player. And it may not be the most obvious choice, but I thought that, you consider everything, the way he plays, the way he attacks the basket. There was that dunk on Varejao he had a couple years back where he then stepped over him after he dunked on him. Those kind of things he brings to the court, I think it's really badass. But more importantly, it was an incident during the lockout meetings about a year ago this time when he basically confronted David Stern in front of all his fellow players. And I thought it was pretty badass and worthy of his inclusion.
Confronting the commissioner is kind of badass.
Yeah, I'd say.
What about you, Brett?
I went with Serena Williams, which, I mean, you want to talk about confrontation. She's gone after umpires. She's gone after linesmen. She's basically gone after anybody that's gotten in her way, and she crushes all opponents, and she's been doing this for 10 years. It's been 9 years since she completed the Serena Slam, and it looks like she just might do it again. And I just relied on putting the story in her own words, because she has these magnificent quotes where it's borderline with what you can print and what you cannot print, and where she's actually threatening linesmen and then backing off when the linesman's requesting clarification on whether or not she's actually saying she's going to kill the linesman. I don't think you can get more badass than that.
So a theme I'm noticing with the three that you guys chose is they're all they all play a little bit dirty. I mean, Ndamukong Suh was voted the dirtiest player in the NFL, and Serena has had more than one notable altercation with the linesman, and even Dwayne Wade has gotten into trouble before in terms of his teammates, or not necessarily his teammates, but other players in the league thinking that he's a bit of a dirty player. Is that what makes them badass, or is it the way that they play?
I think badass is something that you know when you see it. It can go from anywhere from a female tennis player to a pass rusher in the NFL to some guys who sail around the world, brave, 3-story high waves. It's the kind of thing that when you think about the people that play all of these sports, these are the guys that stand out for either refusing to be intimidated, for putting themselves at risk for the cause, or for just leaving absolutely everything on the field. They might not necessarily be the nicest guys, but they're absolutely the guys that you would want with you in a bunker.
So what about somebody like Serena, who is lipping off the linesman constantly? Is that what makes her badass?
Well, that and the fact that she almost died and she still came back and won. I think that the being lippy to the linesman is sort of part of her character, that she's super competitive, and when things aren't going her way, she's not above reverting to bullying tactics to make it work out. It doesn't always work out. She sometimes loses matches because of it. But I think it's what makes her badass above just her behavior is the fact that she wins almost incessantly. And a lot of the times it's really the behavior that I think puts her above and beyond the competition. And I think it might be just that she's intimidating them.
Plus she crip walked at the London Olympics. Which is just, you get style points.
Yeah, anytime you evoke, a gang dance. It's a weird way to say it, but
that's how it was written.
Yeah, it makes you more badass, definitely.
Yeah. What about Dwayne Wade?
Well, I mean, like these guys are saying, there's any number of criteria that you can make to make the argument for someone being a badass. I mean, one thing with Wade that I wasn't able to get into the story was, I even think his childhood is evidence of badassery, if you want to put it that way. He grew up, and he at a really young age, because of his mom was into all this kind of drugs and whatnot. He was put in a position where he was raising his family when he was 9, 10 years old. And in my opinion, that's badass as well. So, I mean, any number of criteria.
What would you guys say to somebody that maybe argues that things like threatening to kill the linesman or dirty plays, stomping on somebody's head is the opposite of badass in terms of athletes that we should be looking to for a more positive sort of source of inspiration? What would you say to somebody that said that?
There's no shortage of athletes out there who play the game with class and integrity, and we can all feel good about having our kids root for them and wanting to grow up wanting to be them. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at top 10 plays on Connected, you're going to look for the guys who really play on the edge, and that's what these people represent. It's the kind of like, you know, we might not want to emulate them, but we're glad they're out there.
And I mean, I think it's a good thing that not everyone agrees on what makes a badass. You know, you think of some of the guys in our magazine this issue, someone like Vicente Padilla. You know, he's a headhunter, a pitcher in baseball, and a lot of people argue that that's not a badass material, but it's open for debate, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I agree with exactly what Jordan said. I mean, there's an infinite amount of Wayne Gretzky's out there, people who play the game, you know, in an honorary fashion, and if you want to gravitate towards them, then they're there for you as a role model. But in this case, I mean, we're looking on the other side. That
is fair. What I've gathered from you guys, and I would tend to agree, is that badass is kind of synonymous with a certain type of swag, or kind of the players that maybe might be the most entertaining. So for that, obviously, we are pretty thankful that they're out there for us to watch. That's all the time that we have, unfortunately, but check back soon for another Sportsnet digital panel.